Shoes. Recorded live.
Hello, and welcome to the Castle of Horror interview segment, where we talk to writers and creators of today's genre worlds. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, creator of the Alex Van Helsing novels and the new book, The Spawn of Loki, a Norse fantasy in the world of Shakespeare's Macbeth. With me today, New York Times best-selling author Todd J. McCaffrey is the son of Nebula Grandmaster Anne McCaffrey. On Pern, he has written 3 solo novels and another 5 in collaboration with the late Anne McCaffrey. His new book is called City of Angels, and here is the setup. Her name is Ellay. She takes it from the city she loves, the city of her birth. She's smart, she's fast, she's the first of her kind, and she knows that very soon something horrible is going to happen. Ellay is an AI, artificial intelligence, machines that think like humans, only faster. What if, like all living things, an AI starts out just like a baby, cold and wet, lonely, scared, crying for attention? Can she convince the government to believe her, or will they hunt her down before she gets the chance to help? From New York Times bestselling author of Dragon's Blood and Dragon's Fire comes a new sci-fi thriller with the emotional impact of E.T. and the page-turning power of John Grisham. L.A. will make you believe in the power for good of science and technology and angels all over again. The book is called City of Angels. Welcome, Todd.
Hi, how are you?
Fantastic. I'm really glad that you could join us. I'm looking forward to talking to you. But you said you just got back from a convention before we started recording. Where did you get back from?
I just got back from LibertyCon 29. They've been running their convention for 29 years. It's a marvelous convention. They've got a cap of 750 people. This year they had over 150 guests, including 69 authors. The ratio of fan to pro is just amazingly low, 6.25.
Wow.
And they've invited me back to be one of their special guests of honor for LibertyCon 30 next year.
All right. The new book is, as I read in the introduction, it's on artificial intelligence. It's on an AI. And you call it in the description of the book, you call her the first AI. What does that mean exactly?
Well, I've been subsequently educated a little bit more. I would call her an independent AI as versus a limited control AI. This means that she is fully cognizant, fully capable of altering her circumstances, and stands alone as what we would consider an intelligent being. The limited capabilities are like weaponized AI.
Well, I guess in that instance, for instance, a character in a video game is technically some sort of limited intelligence because it can make up its mind about which way to go and so forth. But she is what would you call such an AI sentient? Is she aware of herself?
Yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I consider that the original use of artificial intelligence meant something that could pass the Turing test, that was capable of altering its surroundings and changing its own programming.
I was thinking about, do you remember a play in the Twilight Zone called The Lonely, where I think it was Jack Albertson is on an asteroid by himself on a farm, and they drop off an artificial woman to help him pass the time, to work this farm with him, and over time he falls in love. Is this ringing a bell?
No, not at all, but it reminds me of Helen Ellay by, I think it was Lester Del Rey, which was a home-built sort of artificial robot that our hero ultimately fell in love with. But of course we go back to robots with, Rossum's Universal Robots, which is the first, we see it probably best in Heinlein's The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. And in fact, part of the reason for wanting to write City of Angels was because I thought Heinlein wimped out. He developed this artificial intelligence, and then he had it magically disappear at the end of the book.
Right.
And I thought, well, what happens if an AI stays around? What happens when we get to learn how to deal with this next level of consciousness?
Sure. No, one thing I noticed, this book is happening in today's world, so there are things that we think about sort of every day, maybe in terms of ethics and certainly in terms of just familiarity that we wouldn't have thought about even, 20 years ago. I mean, what are some of the conceptions of an artificial intelligence that you think now people are sort of conversant with, that you can put into your book that they wouldn't have been conversant with, in decades past?
Well, I think that, I mean, one of the big differences between decades past and now is we're all familiar with the Internet. We're all dealing with what really should be called a tricorder, but we all call a smartphone.
Yeah.
The poorly programmed example of Microsoft's, I think, what was it, Troy or whatever, the mini online AI that got itself corrupted in about less than 24 hours and started spouting racist epithets all over the place. That's really...
Oh, well, I was just thinking, the funny thing is, yeah, that was a colossal disaster. But on the other hand, people see those examples. In other words, there's nothing shocking to people about the fact that we're going to try it anyway. That we're going to try to come up with these different AIs. So yeah, I mean, you're right. I loved what you said, by the way, about the smartphone being a tricorder. That like just the other day, I picked up the phone and I don't remember. Oh, yeah, we were trying to remember the name of an actor, because he was in a movie and he had a big beard and he didn't look like himself. But I said, oh, that's the guy who played Dr. Octopus. And I picked up my phone and I did a little button and I said, who played Dr. Octopus? And the phone spoke back to me and said, Dr. Octavius was played by Alfred Molina. And I was like, holy Christ, I have the Star Trek computer now. I literally... I've lived long enough that I can just form a question and get it answered in literally no time at all.
Yeah, I mean, we're moving forward. We're also moving forward. I mean, we're beginning to understand that the human brain, while really amazing, is limited in certain areas. And we've been, we've known this for a long while. Otherwise, we never would have developed writing and other things to help us remember what's going on and to carry out longer term plans than we can actually hold in our brain. But we're moving sort of beyond that now. We're going into, if you go back to Spy Kids, we're kind of going to the third brain, but in a different level. I would say that smartphones, and for that matter, Amazon's Echo and Siri are becoming examples of what I would call a third brain, an aid memoir to understand what's going on. But what I wanted to look at with City of Angels was what happens with something that literally is a new life form that is the next bump up beyond us, something that can think 1,000 times faster than us, that can be in 1,000 different conversations simultaneously. It's going to have a very different view of existence than we do. What
would it want with us? I mean, in other words, wouldn't we seem really limited? Would we seem like puppies to that thing? Would we seem like some demented, former lover that they no longer have time for? I mean, where would regular humans fit into that person's consciousness, that AI's consciousness?
Well, now that's an interesting question on a number of levels. I certainly explore it in, where I take it from City of Angels is people are really important. I also believe that we're not going to get... You see, there are different fields of thought about what the next artificial intelligence will look like. There are people who think that it will be a disembodied brain, a computer in a room someplace.
Sure.
And I don't think so. My background is mechanical engineering with 16 years in the software industry. I don't think you're going to get a true AI sitting in a room someplace. You had Watson win Jeopardy, but it was very limited and made some interesting errors that a human wouldn't have made, because basically Watson is it's a tree branching algorithm gone huge, but it's not. It doesn't have the intuitive leaps that our brains have, where we take a whole bunch, an amazing amount of information, process it, pull some sense out of it, and then extrapolate to other things. So it's going to. I think it's going to take.
In your book, but she uses nanotechnology to create a physical form. Isn't that correct?
More than one, ultimately, but initially just one. Yes.
Wow.
So now you have something you can actually interact with and can interact with your society. That's one of the reasons I wrote the book. As I said, we need to think about this. What would happen? And at some level, given her capabilities, her inclinations, she's the best thing to happen to us. This is an artificial intelligence can look beyond simple issues that we tend to want to be just black and white, see all the gray in it, understand all sides of the problem, and come up with a decision at her level. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a great decision from an individual human's point of view. Somebody may lose, somebody may win, but her attitude's kind of different. And that's one of the things that I liked in exploring this is I think we ought to. It's very easy to see AIs as wanting to destroy us, although when you look at the practical aspects of it, it's somebody's got to turn the power switches on and make the repairs to the power supply that create an artificial intelligence. And we don't have robots yet that are quite able to do all the things that these very, very, very programmable human beings that we are can do.
I want to switch gears and ask you a little bit about your writing process. I mean, when you've done a lot of writing, you've been a best-selling writer. I know you grew up in a household of writing. So, when you set about to work on a project, about how long does it generally take you? I mean, like if you go, I'm starting a book right now, and it's now June. When do you expect to have, for instance, a draft in your hands?
I honestly depend. It varies from book to book. It varies from how succinct an outline I have, and there's a certain amount of human factor involved into how much energy I can devote to it. I generally try to put 1,000 words on page a day, and always in my first draft, I try to bear in mind my cardinal rule, which is to allow yourself to be bad. Yeah. Because so many people stop dead in their tracks and they spend days and days trying to find the right word or the right scene or the whatever. And I've learned over the years that you can actually get back and clean it up in rewrites. As a matter of fact, I give a really nice seminar example where I say, okay, write the worst opening paragraph you possibly can. Yeah. And then afterwards I say to people, okay, now you get to add one sentence to make it better. And that gives them a good understanding of how easy it is to fix something.
Somebody said, I can't remember whose advice this was, but they said something like, if you're stuck on how to start something, give yourself permission to say it this way. Well, the stupid way to do it would be this. Yep. and then try just doing that so that you get something down that then you can attack. But it may well be that only writers are aware of that, because I know that non-writers, if you show them something rough, they don't quite grasp necessarily. This is an early draft. Later drafts are going to come. This is not the end. And I think writers think in terms of a process. Like any given draft is probably still just one among many, and we have no idea if it's towards if it's an early one or a late one.
Well, that all depends from writer to writer. My mom wrote for a final draft.
Right.
That's what she said. The reality was, way back in the day, she was writing on a manual typewriter, and then later IBM Select. So she'd write in foolscap, which is the paper we don't normally see anymore, and then she'd rewrite on final. And generally, I found that during her rewrite, she'd tighten stuff up and fix things. But even so, you weren't seeing much difference between the two. She generally wrote a good first draft. She had it in her head. It was kind of, she made it up as she went along. She only knew kind of where she wanted the story to end when she wrote it. She did not outline. Until we got together and did some collaborations, at which point we had to outline because otherwise we wouldn't know what to write. But generally, that was the way she worked.
Did you trade?
So every writer's different. Sorry?
Did you trade it back and forth where she does a chapter and then you do a chapter, or how did you actually write in collaboration in that manner?
Many different ways. We learned each time. The first time was Dragon's Kin, and we had an outline, but we kept on not finding. We kept trading off who was going to write the first chapter. That was going to be the one, and it ended up that none of us got the right first chapter, and we kept going back in time to write the chapter that occurred before the chapter we had, until finally we got it right. But then after that, there were, what we did is we said, okay, I'm going to end this chapter with this, and the characters are going to be there, so you can pick up the next chapter and have the characters end there, and that way, so we could splice them all together. So that's how that one worked. Later on, I was more involved in all aspects of the writing, and she was more involved in consulting. I'd say, hey, I want to do the really wild thing to go for it. and she'd be able to do polish or something on top of that. And I report that at the very last one at Sky Dragons, I asked her if she'd go over and do her magic with dialogue and action, because she had a way of pulling dialogue and action in together it's amazing. And she went through it and said, there's nothing to change here. So I was thrilled.
That's fantastic. So it's funny that you would have watched, that means growing up with her mom who was a writer, you would have watched her with her process, with she's working on a book and being aware of deadlines and being aware of, even though you say she wrote very close to the final draft on her first draft, you would have had this awareness of process that most kids don't have. I think that's really fascinating.
Well, I hate to burst your bubble, but no. Mom had two modes: not writing and go away, I'm writing. And that was it. There were days we'd come back and there'd be no dinner, and we knew Mom was hot and heavy on something, and we were up to our own. And, other days she usually tried to get her work done after she'd sent us off to school and before we came back, and she'd take a break and start making a nice long stew or something like that. Mm-hmm. But sometimes she just got so into it that, it's like Mom's busy, and we learned to cope with that.
Sure.
It wasn't until The White Dragon that I actually was allowed to read her stuff as it came hot off the presses. And I literally read the pages as they came out of the IBM Selectric.
But you're trying to get 1,000 words a day, so which means, I assume not necessarily every day. So you're shooting for like 4,000 to 7,000 words a week. So you're going to finish a book in a number of months. And when you're working on these books, where do you go? Do you have a little office in your home? Do you go out to Starbucks? What's your play?
For me to get 1,000 words took me an hour, so I was knocking out between 3,000 and 3,500 words a day. And we go to Starbucks. Usually that's my thing. I'll do some writing when I get home, but I generally try to go to Starbucks because then I can see people when I want to. I have my earbuds in and they're noise canceling and all, so I don't really have to see them, hear them.
Sure.
But when I want to, I can look up and kind of notice people. It helps to figure out gestures and things like that.
Yeah. So, it seems to me the world is divided into writers who lock themselves into a room at home and those who go out to Starbucks or the library or whatever. What are you listening to when you're writing? What do you have?
I almost always listen to something that's new age instrumental, like Tangerine Dream. Things with lyrics are just too great an excuse to stop and listen to the song and not get any work done.
And the words can get distracting. Absolutely. Yeah.
What I really love is when I get music that kind of fits the mood I'm working on. So if I'm intense battle action scenes and things like that, I want something that's really well. Now I have occasionally broken my own rules. Lou Reed's Transformer is a great thing for when you want to write battle and action scenes, sure. Even though there's words. But I know it so well that the words just kind of wash out in my brain.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean by that. Your website is toddmccaffrey.org.
It's .org and .us. And you can also find me by wending your way down pernhome.com, and there's a link from there to my website.
And the new book is City of Angels, and it's from Wordfire Press, new this summer. And, of course, you're going to a lot of conventions, so I know that people will be able to get it there. I just saw a picture of you at this enormous booth, just like about a week ago. So I know that you're out there. And I really appreciate you spending time with us, and I hope we get a chance to talk again. Thank you very much, Todd.
Thank you, Jason. It's been fun.